I need to start a company. And I think from that moment on, I couldn't think about anything else. Sometimes you just think about it and you have to do it.
Yeah. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. We have Sourabh Gupta, co-founder and CEO of Skit.Ai, a global conversation voice AI startup. Sourabh, it's so exciting to have you on the show. Not only am I interested in particular where the AI space is going, especially with voice and how that is getting integrated in a lot of business and companies, but in particular, looking at what you're doing at Skit, which is really interesting as you're not changing kind of an industry that we're super familiar with, but you're kind of upgrading its potential. And so I'm curious to think about how your tools are doing that for call centers, for collection agencies. But before we get into all that good stuff, what were you doing before you started the company?
I started this in my final semester of my undergrad. So I found my co-founder Akshay and we both started straight out of college. So pretty much studying before that.
It's crazy to think about going straight from college to startup and like what in particular made you crazy enough to actually pursue the idea without any previous experience? What was so compelling about the problem that you were solving and what was the inspiration essentially that led you this far?
I think like at some point I felt that I need to start a company. And I think from that moment on, I couldn't think about anything else. Sometimes you just think about it and you have to do it.
Yeah.
I think it was that more than anything else. And that led me to, it was almost like the opposite was crazy for me. It was not crazy for me to start a company, but to not start it and find a high paying job after college and just get settling into that, that was sort of the crazy part. So
Yeah. Well, thinking about like where you were looking for ideas at the time, and a lot of founders have the same experience. They feel like their journey is to lead a company, a product. They're so compelled by it. And then they start to uncover ideas through conversations or through trial and error. What in particular helped you kind of identify what you wanted to kind of build into?
yeah. So I think we took a couple of years to figure out what to do. First of all, I think we told ourselves this is a very long journey, right? We are in here for the next 10, 15 years. And if it's a 10, 15-year decision, it doesn't matter even if I spend 1 year or 2 years figuring out what to do. So I think long-term thinking sort of helped us with that. And when we were doing that, we were trying to come with all sorts of frameworks, right? You make a spreadsheet, hey, these are the industries you want to go after, and so on and so forth. But I think one thing that stuck with us was we realized we are very young, we're good with technology. So we wanted to work at the edge of technology. And we felt that is where it's going to be really hard for anyone more experienced to compete with us. And we were just exploring a lot of AI at that time, blockchain, AI, all of that. And somehow we got into voice AI. It just made sense to us. At the same time, we were seeing another trend happening in India. So 2016, we were chatting earlier about that, how in India, most of the population never even experienced computers or laptops. So that was a mobile first generation. And these people were coming online, a few million a week. And we felt like these people, when they come online, their needs are going to be very different from people who are living in the tier one. Most of these were tier two, tier three people. So we sort of were trying to merge the edge of technology with this new set of people who were coming online. And that led us to voice AI, that led us to sort of call centers, and we ended up where we are today.
Yeah, and why voice AI in particular? What about its impact or its usability, or was another company doing something that was innovative at the time? What about voice AI in particular?
I remember, when these people are coming online, I think we were thinking, hey, how do we know what to build for them? The best way to do that is go and meet them, go and talk to them. And I remember going in the tier two, tier three areas of India and talking to these people. One of these visits, we met a villager, a farmer who couldn't speak English. So we used to carry a translator with us. India has 22 official languages. I only speak 3, including English. So I remember I took a translator with us, and the farmer told us he receives SMS from banks in English. He doesn't know what they mean, but he knows it's from bank because they're digits. Then he travels 10 kilometers away on a bicycle to get it translated from a bank manager. In the process, he loses his daily wage. So a large part of people don't know how to read or write, but they can speak their local language. And none of the local language technologies in voice existed in India. So we were the first one that built speech to text, text to speech across email languages, which you could use in like real life
Yeah.
scenarios.
Yeah. It's so fascinating thinking about that whole experience and kind of the systemic and operational kind of inefficiencies that are just kind of present in a lot of just technologies that exist without thinking about solutions like that. Thinking about the impact of just that idea in particular, did that kind of rejuvenate or I guess honestly just pour gasoline on the fire of what potential you could do as founders, but also where you could take this technology and where did it go from there? How to get from that example to call centers?
Yeah. So we started doing that. So we knew there was a gap between financial institutions and these tier two, tier three people living there who can't read, write properly, especially in English. So we started figuring out how to bridge this gap.
Yeah.
And we realized the one of the channels is call center. So we had to start somewhere. So we said call center is where huge amount of volume is there. People are trying to communicate, processes are broken, and voice can play a very good role. We saw an opportunity there. So we started that. We
Yeah.
started that in local languages in India. And the moment we started doing that, we started seeing demand for English in India. So we talk about Indian English in the Indian accent and so on. India has the second most populated country from an English speaking perspective after
Yes.
US. Right. So we had that and we started building that. So at some point we were supporting only local languages. Then we started supporting English and local languages. And as we were doing that, we realized the same problem exists in the US. And we are seeing demand for that. And that made me move here a couple of years ago. So we started with that, and then we've sort of kept moving forward where the demand is.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, we're about to just stumble into some amazing territory, not only talking about your transition into different markets and what that experience, I'm sure, brought you in that change, but also thinking about the overall nature and the reliance we have and that everybody has on call centers and what that actually means, because there's a bunch of technologies in between the ability to need a request and get it alleviated, confirmed, solved, whatever. But we still all lean towards voice, and there's reasons for that. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But before we get into all that, just taking a step back in terms of AI and the growth of machine learning, and when you two started to understand and build and iterate in terms of learning the technology, what was like the major milestone or development in AI that kind of helped propel more of the sophisticated things that it's able to do even today?
Right. I think like at some point, this is 2015, 14,
Yeah.
15, a couple of papers came out in deep learning. I think that was the first time you as a 23, 24-year-old could use the concept of deep learning and build something that you can use in production.
Right.
Building a speech to text before that was something you would leave to larger companies like Google and Meta, and you would expect them to have the resources to pull it off.
Yeah.
But that deep learning sort of made it easier for any startup to do, which I think like in some sense LLMs are doing as well in a
Yeah.
different way today. And I'll get into that as well. So I think that enabled us to build something that we could not, or we had to
Yeah.
rely on these bigger companies to start doing in terms of speech to text, text to speech in local languages. Using that and building on top of it, we've been able to create a voice assistant, which is,
Yeah.
and our customers tell us this, like your voice assistant is at least as good as our average agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now with LLMs coming in the picture, like after deep learning, this is the next big thing. Now after this, like our internal goal is we believe we can build a voice assistant which is better than the best agent
Yeah.
because it's more conversational. So I think these kind of things are like elevating or upgrading the experience that one can have with AI.
Yeah. And jumping into what I just kind of alluded to in terms of the reliance on call centers in particular, like, why are we so reliant on that experience? Having somebody kind of walk us through whether it's a ticket or an issue or even just information about a product or service. Why are we still relying on that when there's chatbots, there's FAQs, there's even AI in text? Why do we lean like that as humans?
Yeah, I think like there is adoption for other channels also. I mean, there are
Yeah.
scenarios where you use chat, there are scenarios where you sort of use email, etc. But I feel like by and large, if you face an issue, you want to call, you want
Yeah.
to get it resolved as soon as
Yeah.
possible. And the trust factor you have with, you don't know when you'll get a response to an email. You don't
Yeah.
know when you're getting a response to a chat, but you know if you call a call center, there will be someone on the other side. It's unfortunate. The wait times are unfortunate.
Yeah.
right? But you do know that you can call a number and there will be someone who picks up on the other side. And I think that comfort of predictability is sort of something that drives us.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we have. It's almost like we have somebody on our side, and it's rather than it's us as an advocate, it's us and our advocate, and having that relationship. And one thing I think about with voice AI technology, and I'm curious to ask you this question is: do you think about the voice AI experience and trying to get it as close to being authentic as possible in terms of like a human experience, or do you think about how to create a unique kind of standardized voice AI experience like now we have with chatbots and now we have with all the other things? First, it was like the automated voice dial message. Everybody was thrown off by it, but then it's like, oh, press one for this. Do you think about making it as close to human as possible or standardizing that unique experience?
Yeah. Julian, so what we do internally is we come from user backwards. So we want to design a best experience for the end user, which
Yeah.
not necessarily is human-like or not. So
Mm.
if we end up close to human-like, that will be a function of
Yeah.
what the user wants more than trying to build something which is human-like. Right now, the state of the technology, we believe like we tell people proactively, this we are calling on a recorded line. So people don't end up getting confused. And I think it's important from an ethics point of view as well, that
Sure.
people know they're talking to a human or a bot. So, we're yet to see what the ideal sort of product looks like. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be human. Like, I don't think like that's the
Yeah.
best way to think about it. If it ends up like that, then perfect. But I
Yeah.
think you can use AI in so many ways, which is, it'll be, in some cases, it'll be better than human. In some cases, it'll be worse. But
Sure.
it's an identity in itself, is what we personally believe.
Yeah. 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 Thinking about obviously the company and seeing how it's grown, what's been exciting not only to kind of you jump into a new market and what has been interesting about that transition and growing from India and in that ecosystem now into the US and what's the same, what's different?
Yeah. I think like we almost started another company. That's how
Mm,
we look at it.
mm,
I remember when I moved to New York 2 years ago, I did not know anybody in New York. So there was zero people I knew, and somehow the idea was, hey, we need to start building a business.
yeah.
How do you build a business
When you know no
when
one.
you don't know anyone at all? Right. So it was almost a journey from scratch, hiring the first employees, getting the first customers. There is some overlap we have with India. I mean, we have a broad sense of the ecosystem in terms of
Hmm.
what product we want to build, what customers expect, etc. But we pretty much had a new journey from start. So we've done two startups, is
Yeah.
what we say,
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
one. And I think that itself has been very exciting in a sense that we've made a lot of mistakes,
Yeah.
right? And we sort of learned from them. But when we were doing in the US, we already had so many learnings of India. So I think a lot of things happened very quickly, and now we're already on track to get
Yeah.
so many customers.
Yeah, yeah. Give us a little bit of insight. What's particularly in terms of numbers, what's been exciting about the growth you've seen up to this point and what's particularly exciting about the next milestone that you're looking forward to?
So I think in terms of the numbers, like we have a few dozen customers in India, US, and Southeast Asia.
Hmm.
And I think we have around 200 employees again across these
Yeah.
countries. I think we're doing somewhere around 10 million calls a month.
Wow.
We sort of handle, we support some of the largest banks, insurance companies, telecom players across countries. If you go to
Yeah.
India today and you call a large enterprise and you hear a bot on the other side, like high probability is powered by us.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the scale and the traction. We've raised obviously a few rounds in our journey, and and the next milestone is this. Like I said, we want to build the best product. We want to make our customers happy. We want to deliver more value. So that's sort of what we're focusing on.
Yeah, yeah. What's been in regards to the fundraising process? How has obviously the landscape changed, and have you changed anything about how you operate as a company, being that startups kind of face this new challenge, having to operate really efficiently and really lean and be hyper productive?
Yeah, I think like the lens has changed from growth at any cost
Yeah.
to, so like it has reflected in doing a lot of reviews of gross margins and expenses and things like that, sales and marketing efficiency and so on and so forth, which I think sort of took a back seat in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So we've moved our focus on these things, but again, like that doesn't mean that we're not focusing on growth. So we're still focusing on
Yeah.
growth. We still want to get customers, but just not at any cost. Like we are
Yeah.
questioning, which are the right channels, and which is I think
Yeah.
very healthy
Yeah.
uh, thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. It's exciting thinking about kind of the AI and its potential and possibilities. But I obviously read an article written by yourself thinking about the biases with AI. And I'd love to kind of for you to share your ideas in terms of how not only we can kind of change our relationship and how we think of AI, but maybe even something proactive that what can we put in place to help, I guess not police, but I guess utilize the tool in the right direction. Because like any tool, it can be used to harm and for good. But curious to hear your thoughts on the biases and what we should do to overcome them.
I think it's a very interesting question. First step is acknowledging that your systems might be biased. Like even if they're not, like I think the right framework is to think they are.
Mm-hmm.
And the first problem to solve is like how do you measure bias in the company or in your products in AI? I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
really hard problem. There are no tools or standards in the world. Like it's not like revenue that you have a number and you can say, hey, this is how biased I am. But I think like for everyone, we need to understand like LLMs, if they're trained on data available on the web, like by
Yeah.
definition, they are biased. And whatever product that you have, whatever you're building, you have to take care of certain things that it's not biased based on age, gender, religion, etc., etc.
Right. Right. Right.
So what we are doing is we're trying to sort of build a framework internally of how do we measure it. And then we're trying to work on, after measuring, we're trying to work on, hey, how do we design an AI architecture which reduces it, if not eliminates it 100%. But again, like I said, it's an active area of work. And, I think everyone needs to start focusing on that.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some ways that what are some things that you put in place to kind of alleviate or acknowledge or even just, I guess, signal when those biases are coming about?
Yeah, I think like one of the things we've done is based on if in our call we have access to data like gender or name,
Mm-hmm.
and we're using open source technology like LLMs, we should not be having conversations differently with people.
Yeah.
Just because you are Julian and I'm Sourabh should not change the response the voice
Yeah.
assistant is giving to you or me. So that is an example of what we have sort of done.
Yeah. Yeah. So fascinating thinking about where that leads to. And I'm curious to think about taking a step back, looking at the company, whether it's external or internal. What do you view as some of the biggest risks that the company faces today?
I think like with advancements in AI that we are seeing with LLMs coming in, like it's more and more real that we are heading towards the world of what we are doing,
Yeah.
right? So the question of will voice assistants become a norm across the world is not a question anymore. I think the answer there is yes. So the question is who will do it more than will it happen? And that sort of tells us that the biggest risk for us is execution risk. And what I mean by that is like, hey, are we focusing on the right markets? Do we have the right product strategy? Are we keeping our customers happy? Are we taking care of churn? Are we taking care of our costs while they're building and so on and so forth? So I think like we believe execution risk is the biggest, which is big enough risk in itself. So I'm not trying to say that there is no risk, but I think like we are in a good place right now.
And if everything goes well, what do you think? What would you say is the long-term vision for the company?
So I think we've always had a vision of building a unique, differentiated, and sophisticated voice AI technology company. And what I mean by that is like it has to be unique, it has to be differentiated, and it has to be sophisticated. So that's sort of the back end. What we are doing today, if I'm working in the debt recovery market, automating bots, etc., it's short term. Call centers is short term. We have the vision to build a voice AI company, and that's what we are sort of moving towards. Working in call centers gives us access to tremendous amount of data, which we can use to keep building our systems, voice AI technology for the future. And what we do strategically every 18 months changes, and it will keep changing but we will always be building voice AI.
I love this next section. I call my founder FAQ. So I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire questions and we'll see where we get. So first question I always like to open it up with is what's particularly hard about your job day to day?
Wow. Okay. I think like context switching.
Yeah.
So 30 minutes you're doing a tech review and then you're doing a product review and then you're doing sales review. Asking the right questions and getting in that zone is sometimes, hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about time in particular, I think a lot of founders obsess on where they spend time, having more time, needing more time. What in particular would you say something that you spend less time doing that you would like to spend more, and a lot of time doing that you would like to spend less?
Okay, that's a good, very good question. I think like maybe the second one, so what I do less, which I should do more, is like
Mm-hmm.
communication with the team.
Mm.
We have 200 people. I'm here. A lot of them are in Bangalore, in India. So just communicating with them one-on-one or even one-to-many. I think I should start spending more time doing that. And what I should stop doing is, I think like I start going deeper into different functions, like in sales or in success, etc. I should just leave it to the leaders and
Yeah.
take a step back.
Yeah, it's such a founder mentality though to try everything before anyone's done that job function to be able to understand, right? I feel like time and time again. I mean, I was reading The Hard Thing About Hard Things the other day, and it was like that was just like drilled into a lot of what he was talking about, and you see the reasons why and how it's successful. Thinking about obviously just like a lot of founders who have co-founder relationships talk about challenges, but also how you kind of divvy up responsibilities, go through kind of hardships, how to maintain a strong relationship. What are some things that have helped you and your co-founder kind of have a strong relationship, but also keep each other accountable, which is what we all hope to have?
Yeah. I think the relationship with me and my co-founder from day one was, while we both come from technology background, he was the tech guy
Yeah.
and I was doing everything else. So I think the boundary was very clear that, hey, I trust you with technology. And from his point of view, I trust you with everything else. So that's sort of something we maintained for a while until
Yeah.
recently we got a VP engineering. And that sort of led us to a point where we were questioning here, what is the best place for my co-founder to start spending time on? And he moved into an operations role. So I think one of the things we realized, especially when I'm here, he's in India, is very regular communication is very important.
Yeah.
So one of the things we did was set up a regular one-on-one meeting
Yeah.
on the calendar. Even though you were seeing each other in different review meetings, I think it's very important to do that. So I think that is something that has helped us, quite a
Yeah.
lot. And in those meetings, we discuss everything, including some of the question, what did you do in the last week? You said you would
Yeah.
do this. And
Yeah. 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 Thinking about other companies out there, I always like to ask founders this. What are some companies doing some really cool things, either from a technology standpoint or from a creative kind of user experience standpoint that you're a fan of and that you kind of hope to emulate with the company you're running right now?
it's like two companies are coming to my mind. I think one is obviously we have to talk about OpenAI,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's just so cool what they've done. And they were under the radar for so long. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, it's just blown up. They've created something amazing. And Sam Altman is like going all over the place.
Yeah.
Presidents and prime ministers of different. I think like that's really cool as a founder to having created something that everyone in the world is acknowledging and every leader in the world wants to meet you at this point. So I think that's very inspiring. I think the other something that we used to day to day is Brex.
Yeah.
Music in recent, it's so small. It's for the longest I was trying to figure out what to do with my invoices, how do we manage that, accounting, etc. And I think the user experience they have created on both mobile and web
Yeah.
for both the finance team and the individuals, and you can get a card whenever. I don't know if you've used Brex, but the user experience is beautiful.
Yeah. I don't use them personally, but I'm a big fan of them because they hire a bunch of developers from South America, and I run an agency that's where our main source of candidates are. But they've just built such an impressive company and are such a smooth experience. They've maintained such a strong brand throughout the years that, I mean, I think they look the same. It's like still sleek, still kind of cutting edge, but kind of rigid and financial. From I think I don't know when they started. It's pretty impressive how to maintain that consistent image. Thinking about the technology, in particular voice AI, obviously you're working on what Skit is in the direction it's going, but what would you hope to, or maybe this type of technology, what are you interested in its application in the grander scheme of things, whether it's Skit or whether it's somebody else? What's in particular interesting in terms of where you can apply it?
Yeah, I think like one of the things which I feel will get upgraded is having a personal assistant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I think about Alexa or Siri, I mean, I have two Alexas at home, for example, in my living room. But you can only get so much done.
Yeah.
It can help you with alarm, with reminders, maybe my grocery list, and you'll screw
Yeah.
that up well a couple of times. But I think the scope of improving that is so significant right now. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Her.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never, but I've heard of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like, I mean, that is obviously a very extreme angle to it, which is having a almost like a girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think these personal assistants can get so much more done
Yeah.
with LLMs. And even if you just plug in GPT-4 there, that is an area which I'm personally very excited about in
Yeah.
the coming years.
Yeah, it's so exciting thinking about the different tools and plugins, the expansion of all this AI technologies, and it's. Are you what side are you on? Are you on the side that there's going to be this Terminator style apocalypse that's going to come, or is it just going to continue being a stronger tool and taking away a lot of the inefficient work that I think we do manually to really only have us focus on important things or things that are timely? Which side are you on?
Yeah. I think like my framework is like in these kind of things that rely on, what like the really smart people who are working in the hands are sort of thing. And a lot of them are worried that sort of worries me as well. So I think like regulations are
Yeah.
important in some shape or form. But like if people like Elon Musk are sitting there worried about the implications it can have, I think like everyone should be,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
some extent concerned. I don't know if it ever end up in the Terminator kind of situation because I think regulations will end up taking care of someone, but it is sort of scary. Like maybe not that, but with OpenAI and GPT, things you can do with
Yeah.
just you can create a video of a president talking about something and it feels real. And
Yeah.
the way that can be used or misused is
Yeah.
just so harmful.
Yeah, it is cool though to think about its adoption into the speed at which technology gets developed. Like there's been so much significant advancements, not only just thinking about what microservices did, but also now implementing AI and all these almost like hyper productive tools and engines. Discuss, yeah, I don't know if you have any reflection on this, but from who you talk to or who you meet or even technology, how much different is it building in today's world than even like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago in how available building a sophisticated product is.
Yeah. I think like when we started, building has always been, I think, equally hard. What you can build has changed, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Like that.
like you could not build a bot as good as the best agent earlier. You could only build an average bot. But building an average bot 6 years ago took equal effort as building the best agent
Yeah.
bot today.
Yeah.
So I think like this just enables us to
Mm,
upgrade the products, but it's always been equally hard.
yeah. Yeah.
Does
That's
that
a good,
make sense?
that 100%. No, that's a great perspective. I love that perspective. Definitely something different that I haven't heard yet. I always like to ask founders this because I love what you extract and what you ingest knowledge and where you ingest knowledge from. Whether it's early in your career or now, what books or people have had a lasting impact on you as a founder?
I think I did talk about Elon Musk, so I know it's a cliche answer for any entrepreneur, but I remember like back in the days, I was very young in my late teens, etc. Reading a lot about him. I read his biography. I'm looking forward to his next one. The guy who wrote Jobs. It's coming in September, so I'm looking forward to that one. But I read the Ashley Vance one. I think that was very inspiring.
Yeah.
But beyond like cliche, like last year I read, might be mixing up the name, but Stephen
Mm,
Schwarzman, the
mm,
Blackstone founder. He
mm.
lives right here, the Upper East Side.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I think I read his autobiography. That was very inspiring. And this guy, some things that I picked up. He rarely drank. Being a
Really?
finance guy in New York, he really,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So some things were very inspiring. The way he built Blackstone and
Yeah.
being right here.
Yeah. I'm still trying to get into the Schwarzman Scholar program. So if he sees this, he's got to put me in through admissions, push my application up. No, people like him are extremely brilliant, and
Yeah.
you learn so much. Also, they own so much of so many assets of the world. Them along with Vanguard, the strategically how you do that and how you put systems in place, how you build partnerships, and how things feed into an ecosystem. Once that flywheel starts going, it seems like endless at some point. And so I guess my question to you is, what's that moment, at least within the short term, that gets that flywheel going to lead you to the next milestone? What would you say that is?
Yeah. I mean, I think like we have some goals with respect to building AI. I think we have some milestones for the next year. For example, I think at some point, like I said, it was growth at any cost and we were growing, etc. And then when the macro changed, we learned things and then we decided that, you know what, we have to move from there into growth at reasonable cost,
Yeah.
etc. And I think getting into some of those cost structures can take time.
Yeah.
At the scale of 200 people, you can't just like overnight say that, hey, I'm going to improve my gross margin by 50% overnight and so on and so forth. So I think we do have some of those goals in our mind that we are sort of going forward with. But like I said, like the recent things we are getting very excited about is building agent, which is building a bot which is better than the best agent. I think that is something which is super exciting goal for us internally. We have a team of machine learning engineers that are just working on that day in and day out.
Yeah.
So hopefully, but the changing milestones problem. So the moment you are close to one, there are 5 goals that you have.
Exactly. Well, Sourabh, I know we're close to the end of the show, so I always want to make sure we didn't leave anything on the table. Is there any question I didn't ask you that I should have?
I think we are good. Yeah, so many.
Well, thank you for being such a great guest and honestly, not only diving into your background, your experience, but how you view kind of not only building your company, but the building landscape, the funding landscape, and really giving a lot of anecdotes that I think companies can use to their business and how to think and build and strategize, and even who to look at to do so. So the last little bit is, where can we find you? Where can we be a fan of you as a founder? Give us your LinkedIn, your Twitter, wherever you're most active, where people on the podcast can get in touch and be a fan.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn and Twitter, those are 2 platforms where I am available all the time. And personal life is private, so I won't say Instagram or anything else.
Love it. Sourabh, it's been such a pleasure walking the audience through your journey, but seeing where you are, where the company is, and really just getting excited about its potential. So I hope you enjoyed yourself, and thank you again for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you, Julian, for inviting me. Thank you.
Of course.